front of the Ohio State Reformatory, although you might know it better as Shawshank State Prison, because yes, this was one of the stars of the movie, based on Stephen King's novella Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Now, the original grounds here were used as a Civil War training camp, and that is very, very fitting, because the architect, Levi Tucker Schofield, was a Civil War veteran. And he studied in Europe, and he brought back with him all of the styles that he saw traveling throughout Europe. And he loved the medieval fortresses, the castles, the chateaus, and he worked all that architecture into this amazing facade you see behind us. And because it was a reformatory, the whole idea was that it would be as inspiring as possible. But after a few years, the convicts here gave this structure a new nickname. They called it Dracula's Castle. And as you can see, there's a good reason for that name to have stuck too. This is the Catholic chapel at the Ohio State Reformatory, and I want to stress that word, reformatory. The work on the Ohio State Reformatory began in 1886. They welcomed their first prisoners in 1896, and construction was pretty much completed around 1900. And this was a state-of-the-art reformatory. All of the outbuildings were about teaching the prisoners a trade. All of the architecture was about inspiring them to reform and lead better lives. But by the end of its existence, the reformatory had turned into an actual prison. It was the victim of aging, overcrowding. There had been a fire at another prison in Ohio, so a lot of prisoners were moved over here, and it became a very, very different place. By the early 90s, it was clear they needed a new prison, which was built here in Mansfield, and this was shut down. So by the time Frank Darabont saw this and was considering using this for the Shawshank Redemption, you cannot imagine what shape this place was in. Pipes were burst, windows were out, there were ice flows on the walls where the pipes had burst. And that was the building that Frank Darabont saw in March of 1993 when he was looking for a prison to play Shawshank State Prison. And yet, he fell in love with this place. The Shawshank Redemption filmed in Mansfield and the surrounding area for 3 months in 1993. These were excruciatingly hot months. Nobody who worked on this movie can say anything without starting with how hot it was. Now, for those of you who know the film, well, you probably recognize where I'm sitting. Warden Norton's office, Warden Norton's desk. And I'll try not to be too obtuse about this, but imagine how hot it was when they were filming in here. There was no air conditioning, they had all the lights on, middle of summer, and most of the windows were out, so their biggest problem was not just the heat, but the flies. So every crew member was issued a fly swatter, and they got very good at pest control, and they started notching their fly swatters. But I want to make another point about this, because this is where I'm sitting. Most movies that shoot on location only go and stay somewhere for a few days. They were here for 3 months. And all of the locations where they shot are still standing, like this room, which means you can visit and live in this movie. So that today, it remains a huge tourist attraction and a wonderful economic boom, not just to this area and state, but the whole region. You know, The Shawshank Redemption was not a hit when it was released in 1994. It was a box office disappointment, but it has risen in popularity every year since, until now it is #1 on IMDb on the list of most loved movies, ahead of The Godfather. And this film speaks to hope. This film speaks to redemption, friendship, and the number of things that can redeem us, like music and education. And remember, this building began as a reformatory to be reformed. Another word for redemption.